Here we are under the car, and there you can see the rusty muffler. Rusted out towards the back like usual. Water plays back in there for moisture, condensation. He actually put a muffler on this car about 10 years ago, and, well, it's due again. And I'm going to start here, spray the bolts up that hold the flange to the tailpipe with a little rust penetrant there. There's a close-up look of what I'm using. And we're going to take and get on it with the deep socket and half-inch drive ratchet, and it's starting to just spin around freely. And I'm going to take, and there it comes. Yeah, I never drove this car in the winter. I replaced the bolts and nuts when I put the last muffler on, and they're still in good shape. Man, look at that. Now it's just turning finger tight there, which is amazing again for 10 years under the car. I say in most cases you're probably doing this, you're not going to be reusing your bolts and nuts, which isn't a problem. They're just 3/8 coarse thread bolts and nuts is all I'm using. Now we're spraying the other nut and bolt up with the same lubricant, and going to just repeat like we did on the first one we removed. Deep socket, impact socket with the half-inch drive ratchet, and going to break it free, maybe. Yeah, this one maybe is going to be a little more stubborn, but there it goes. And same deal, I'm going to have to hold it with the wrench there. It just wants to spin around. Now, like I say, there, that's off. And we're just going to take and turn the nut off with our fingers again. Simple as can be. And we're going to take the bolt out and the washer, and that much is done. And there is another possibility if you're replacing one of these mufflers. Some of the aftermarket mufflers come with this flange, which you'll see here in a little bit, and some don't. Like I say, maybe you won't even have the flange with the bolts. It'll just slide into the muffler if you buy the tailpipe along with the muffler at the same time. And here we're just a general overlook how it rested it on the axle and such while we're doing it. It's not going any place, as the rear hanger's still up in place and resting down on top of the axle in the back, and that'll stay there till it's time to put it back up in place. And there's the flange on the muffler. You can see the gasket material yet stuck to it. And that's the next order of business, is to get the muffler the rest of the way off. I say with dual exhaust, this car got duals, there's two of them. And we're going to spray the clamp bolts up just like we did the flange bolts. And using the same 9/16 half-inch socket and the ratchet, I'm going to take and turn those off. And look at that, they're even turning off nice as can be. And just remember the old deal, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. In other words, counterclockwise to loosen and clockwise to tighten. And there's one of the nuts off the clamp, and we're just going to have to get the other one. Usually, like I say, on these, you end up cutting them with the cutoff tool or a torch or something, but no problem. Or they just snap off, but it's coming no problem whatsoever. And also watch when you're working under the car. I did this once upon a time. You don't hit yourself in the head with the ratchet when you're working on exhaust. I snapped the bolt off working on a blazer, an exhaust bolt, and cracked myself in the chin and had to go get stitched. Okay, this is all bud off the clamp. Now we just got to finish getting the muffler off, which on that, once the clamp's out of our way, I talked about it. We're going to be using my 3-inch cutoff tool here. And the whole purpose here is to split this, not cut it off per se, but split it that we can get it to slide back off the exhaust pipe. I don't want to really cut any off the exhaust pipe. I mean, the muffler's getting replaced, this junk anyhow, and just gradually working back and forth, cutting the groove in it. Like I say, it just goes through the muffler layer, not in through the tailpipe, although it's going to gouge a little bit into the exhaust pipe. I said tailpipe, I meant to say exhaust pipe. Okay, we're about where we need to be, just a little bit more. Like I say, a little bit at a time. You can always go back and do it, but if you cut too far, then that sort of poses a problem. And as usual, common sense, when you're working under a car with cutting tools, just be sure to wear some sort of safety glasses or a face shield. And I'm going to take here, now you're going to see the objective. Got a little chisel, and we're going to just take and try to knock this up away from the exhaust pipe, the muffler, and get the rust broke free, and eventually it will come off. Just sort of, like I say, keep working at it a little bit and prying back. Yeah, I remember a long time ago when I first started driving, lack of tools, I changed mufflers with no more than a screwdriver and a hammer, but you always ended up butchering up the exhaust pipe and that. It's starting to, I think, move a little bit, and we're going to take and work around a little bit more with the chisel and the hammer and try to pry back some more. Yeah, but those were the days, like I say, trying to do this with just a screwdriver and a hammer, no cutter tools, no access there or anything. And there, the chisel's actually pounding in real nice and getting some more pry back. And here, just keep going at it. When it goes, they'll sort of take and go all at once. And here we're going to take and just pound straight up and try to split where we cut it some more. And just easy does it. Okay, it's pretty close here. Now we're going to take and just pound back on the muffler. Again, the muffler's junk anyhow, and look at that. It's starting to come right back off like it should. And just some more. And I'm going to try to just work it from the back and get it to slide the rest of the way off, but not quite yet. I'm trying to keep just going flying through the air, even though, and it's off. And it's still in the hangers at the back, those rubber hangers, and we'll have to remove those. I'm going to first remove the one on the right side of the car, push it down out of it, and we'll get the, like I say, there's two that hold these, the one on the left side of the car. And just take and slide it out of that, and the muffler is removed. And it's time to get back out from under the car and look at this up closer, what you have. Yeah, one rusty muffler, that's so true. Okay, and here we're going to take and look at the new muffler. And as I was saying earlier, see, this new muffler don't come with the flange. Now, in theory, there probably is enough on the tailpipe it would slide in, but I don't really want to cut the flange off my pipe. I like the flange personally. I thought it makes taking this off easier. So we're going to come back under the car, and we're going to line this up. I'm going to remove the flange from the old muffler, and we're going to be welding it on here in a little bit once we get it in the location. Yeah, just up in those hangers again for temporary holding it. Like I say, it won't be staying in this go around. Okay, they're in. Now we're just going to take and pick it up here, and we're going to slide it back on the exhaust pipe. Try not to get it stuck, because again, it's coming back off. I'm not going to take and really try to pound it into place like it's going to be staying on this go around, because it's not, just so you can get the general idea so we can weld the flange at the right place. And I'm just going to take and just try to push it on a little bit, and just push up a little bit on the exhaust pipe, and just tap a little bit here with the rubber mallet, and that's going to be pretty much there, about where we need it. Tap it from the back with the rubber mallet, and a little bit more, and it will here soon get in place enough. At least we know it fits the exhaust pipe. There's no problem on that. Yeah, before welding this flange on, you want to make sure it is pretty much where it should be, because it don't. If you get it welded on crooked, your muffler's going to sit crooked, and in turn it's going to make the tailpipe crooked and perhaps rub up against the bumper or something on the car, and that's always an ugly sight, a tailpipe against a plastic bumper, and ends up melting it. But that's one of the reasons, like I say, I'm doing this, and it's pretty much, it was on father to start with, but this will work for the job, and it could be shorter on the end on the muffler anyhow on this new muffler, but it's definitely, now we're going to go back here, and we're going to just sort of temporarily put the tailpipe here where it's going to sit on it and make sure it's in place. Okay, as soon here, we'll get back up from underneath this car, and we're going to take and cut this flange off this old muffler with the Sawzall and the metal cutting blade, and here we go to town on that. Now, one thing, if you don't have a welder and you want to maintain, if you have one with the flange, maintain the flange, you could probably get away with clamping it in the place there, but it probably wouldn't. On the other hand, that's up to you. Or you could just again cut the flange off the tailpipe and not use the flange. And again, I think on where you buy, if you buy a tailpipe and muffler together, some of them, again, as you see, don't have this flange, so it might not even be an issue in your case. And there is the flange removed off the muffler, and there we're all ready to go on that. Alrighty, now we're going to walk over here to the bench face, take and grind just where we're going to weld. That's one thing, welding does go better if you grind good. And get it cleaned up nice and shiny. And prove the fact also, besides getting ready to weld, be sure, and I'm sure the answer, it is substantial enough yet to weld and it's worth reusing. I'm definitely, most certainly sure, not done here, but it will be just fine. Yeah, it's a little extra time doing this, but I also look at the fact it's a little extra time you're not working under the car. It's a little bit nicer on the back of the old body standing at the bench face instead of rolling under the car or kneeling up underneath it. And there we had to turn it in the bench face to get around to get more of it accessible to grind off good with the grinder. Yeah, this grinder I'm using is actually a 4-inch, not a 4.5-inch grinder. I actually have a video on YouTube on it. I'll put a link in the description. It was got at Harbor Freight, but the 4-inch, even though it's only a 1/2-inch difference, does seem to give you more maneuverability in tight areas. And like I say, a lot of times I just use that 3-inch cutoff tool I was using under the car, but on the other hand, it's slow. If you can get away with using something else for grinding purposes, you're better off, because if you enjoy cars, you have to check out some of my other videos. When I do car repair, I do my own work. I try to make a video on items I feel that would be interest to people there and like to know more information, and I try to show from start to finish, everything in between, like this grinding. Maybe it's a little monotonous, but you get the full idea of what to do, not expecting somebody to know everything without being showed there. And furthermore, if you like the extra steps showed, I'd appreciate a like. Or if you have a better way or another idea, go ahead and let that in the comments too. And here we're going to turn this flange around and do some more grinding. We'll soon be around the whole flange and getting ready to weld. Like I say, to successfully weld, good grinding does make welding a lot more successful. Yes, over the years, that's one of the things I think I've did more work on than anything in the car's exhaust work, especially living in the Northeast, the road salt. And that, and on this, I don't drive it in the salt, but that's just about equally as bad, sitting around all winter when you're not driving it, no garage there. And even if you have a garage, it's hard to, even if you drive a car for 50 miles or so before parking it, to say 100% all the moisture's out of it and the collect's sitting up from the ground. So again, on this muffler, I mentioned earlier, I had put it on 10 years ago, and I might have been a lifetime muffler, but the smoke catch, I don't remember where I bought it, nor do I have the receipt anymore. And when I did it 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd still own the car. Yeah, I used to buy and sell cars all the time, but cars have become more money than I have money to. Used to be able to get stuff, be able to fix it up, and make a couple dollars, but not anymore in this day and age. That, and the newer the cars get, the less I really like working on. I mean, eventually I guess have to give in. The newest thing I own right now is a 2005, and that's new enough for my liking. I mean, down the road I guess we'll have to give in. And we're soon getting done with this. Actually, now we're just working with the edge of the grinder wheel up around literally the flange itself, and we can soon get ready here to proceed. And before proceeding, I'm going to just take here and a little bit here, a spot I missed I didn't see. Go over this a little bit and get it nice and shined up. It's, like I say, probably overkill. And just going around where it's going to slide back in the muffler. And now we are done grinding. Take it out of the vise, and there's all our work there showed on our grinding, nice and shiny, ready to go. And like I say, it will be welded into the muffler. But one step before welding it into the muffler, we're going to get back under the car. Remember, we had put the muffler back up in place. And I'm going to tap this in the muffler. A fairly nice snug fit. and we're going to get it lined up. Again, the muffler is nice and straight in the car. Oh, and earlier I had mentioned if you didn't have a welder and you wanted to reuse the flange about using a clamp on it. One problem, probably when you go to use the nut and bolts, I'm not saying you couldn't work around and do it, but it would get in your way when you go to bolt it back up. But okay, there we got it. We're looking at it. It looks good, but the big key is I'm going to put it together here temporarily, and we're going to take and go look at it at the back of the car. Oh, that, and you're going to have to excuse me. I've incorrectly a couple times in this video keep saying about the muffler crooked. The muffler, because of those two rubber hangers and the brackets welded on, it's in the right place. But if you weld the flange in wrong, you're going to put the tailpipe on an unusual angle that's going to rub the car. I keep saying the wrong thing, but I wanted to make that straight. Okay, here we're going to take and get again, you don't need to use the gasket right now between the muffler and the tailpipe, but I want to get it, like I say, virtually lined up, and going to end up here soon, marking it. Here, a close-up shot of where we're dealing with. Alrighty, there it is. And on that, I'm ready to mark it here. Now I'm going to take and use a marker and put a couple different spots on it. I'm happy with that right where it's at. I say put a mark there on the flange plus the muffler, and I'm going to go around here and do the same thing on the other side. And like I say, once you start welding it, then you don't have to worry about it moving. It'll be held in place, but just till you start it in place. Okay, and one last time before I say for sure this is where it's going to be, put the tailpipe on, bolted it up, and this is what you're looking for. It's not hitting the frame, it's not touching the rubber bumper cover. There's looking towards the back of the car from underneath, and there's looking from the back of the car up towards the front, and it's all nice and will do the job. But I just wanted to make one more time sure before I welded, and we're going to take and get this muffler back off the car and get going on this project. Okay, I'm going to take here, grab the mallet, and muffler stuck on pretty good. Rubber mallet won't hurt the muffler, and get that hairs back off, and just get it back out of our little rubber donut type hangers. And just like when we took the rusty one off, just sort of pull on the rubber hanger, and same deal, hold that and just sort of wiggle it around until it comes out. Sometimes these aren't that bad, and sometimes they'll aggravate you. And this one's just sort of getting to the point it's getting aggravating. It's all bud out, but it's just sort of hanging by a thread. And well, anyhow, we'll push back, hold the muffler up, and there it is. Okay, now we are ready to weld. As it's positioned in place yet, hasn't moved. And double checking the other mark we put on it, being sure it hasn't came out of place. Okay, have our ground clamp of our welder hooked up, and have our MIG torch in hand, and we're going to weld. I'm going to try to show you this as good as I can with the camera. It don't usually show up the best, but there we go, I have a little spot done, and we're going to go back in and go at it some more. There, sparks are flying. Yeah, like I say, I'm doing as good as I can, but it's sort of hard to show the welding with the video camera. Don't want to get hot sparks too close to the camera and end up messing the lens up. And when you're welding, the gloves are a good idea. And we're getting some more welding action and taking place. Yeah, one thing, I always use the flux cord 30 thousandths wire with my Hobart 140 MIG welder. If you did the solid wire and used the shielding gas, it wouldn't make as much of a mess there, but not really. That's what, again, you can grind when you're done. And in this case, well, it's under the car, you don't see it. I find that I sooner spend the extra on the wire and end up, I live out in the country, running out of shielding gas in the middle of a project. Okay, here we're getting some more welding. Away we go around. Yeah, there's something there. When you're welding around a circular, it is a little tricky. It's, like I say, hard to You're going to have to take now, and I'm going to tilt it up on edge. And yeah, I'm using a brick under the edge of it there, whatever it takes. I have it on a stainless aluminum step stool, and using the brick to tilt it upwards. Like I say, the muffler's too big and clumsy to hold in my bench vise. Oh, and this isn't per se a learn how to weld video. It's a replace muffler on your Crown Victoria. But when you're welding like on this flange, try to start, when you start welding, have it pointed towards the thicker metal surface like the flange itself, and make your puddle work back towards the thinner metal, which is the muffler itself. And so, like I say, it is a little tricky when you're welding a thinner metal to a thicker, but this isn't too bad on that end of it. And there you can see we got some, and there's our flux, all the white powder. Here again with the gas wire, solid wire, you don't have that, but wire brush cleans it right up. And here we're going to clean some more with the wire brush. Like I say, it comes right off. I guess next time around it'll make a good arc with the welder. And actually here, I'm going to let you listen to the welder here where I'm welding, and what it should sound. Okay, and one thing to notice too, on this, when you're dealing with the thinner metal, partially when you're welding, I took a little bit, I started the welder, stopped it there, sort of let it cool, give it like about a second or two between each time you weld, and just keep going. Again, it don't give you a nice continuous smooth weld, but it'll do the job and it won't burn through the muffler itself. And here we're doing some more welding. And like I say, you can see the flux of smoke from it there burning. And as before, now we got to go take here and clean it with the wire brush again. That's sort of welding. It's once you learn it. It took me a couple of years to pick it up. I'm still not going to say I'm no expert by no means, but you weld a little bit and you use the wire brush, weld a little bit and use the wire brush. Oh, and of course, grind before you get going good. And then if you're like doing body work or something, grind after the fact to make it look good. But it's sort of a few things you do and you just repeat. Actually, I do love having a welder. I didn't get one till back in 2006, first one, and I have been able, even besides car stuff, fix so much stuff around the house, tractors and that, I wouldn't be without one anymore. Yeah, I could say my first welder too. Now that's something you're better off personally to spend more and get something better. The first one I bought, and I don't remember the brand, I bought it at Walmart. It was around $300, and I did learn, I guess, to weld on it in about 2 years. But then I updated this Hobart, and I'll put it this way: if I would have started with the Hobart, I probably would have took 2 years when I had the chance to work on it and needed the weld stuff there. Probably would have picked it up in 6 months with a better welder. But yeah, live and learn. And the Hobart, yeah, it was more. Almost twice the amount as the one at Walmart, but again, it's literally twice the welder. And there's other good welders besides that, but I do know this Hobart 140 is a welder. I'm very pleased with it, and I've owned it, since like 2010. Cause like I had that other one for a while, and then I updated to this one on income tax 1 year. I gave you a little bit different view welding down on it. And in theory, probably my weld there is a little bit too thick there. I probably should cut the wire speed back some, but again, nobody's going to see it. It's holding good. Now here we're going to go around a different angle. This muffler is sort of a pain because it's like I say, you're going around, and I've moved it around different times and tried to block it up, and then we're getting there. Just takes time. Yeah, when I put the one on the car about 10 years ago, our has dual exhaust. I had to change both of them. So far on this one, at least it's only one, but it probably next year I'll be ending up replacing the other side. And at that time, I also did the tailpipes. But see, that's how I know about the tailpipes with and without the flange. Some of them did, some of them didn't, but I happened to get the ones that had the flange on it because it was faster at the time to obtain them, and sort of how I ended up. I just going to keep the flange and be done with it. On the other hand, it was nice that the replacement muffler does come with the brackets welded to it to go in those donut hangers. And here we got it lifted up, tilted to the side, and weld some more here at a different angle. Like I say, somebody that probably did this more than me could take, and actually I've watched people do it under the car, weld pipes and that. It would be done no time flat, but this is as good as I do with it, but it will, like I say, do the job. Alrighty, and then finally the last about half-inch here to weld. We'll get that, and it will be ready for back on the car. One thing on this, I sort of make these videos to help a person out. I say maybe there's better ways to do it. If there, like I say, any constructive criticism you'd like to put in the comments below, feel free to do so. Or, again, if you like how I do it, I'd appreciate a comment on that too. Alrighty, here we're about done. I take wire brushes here one more time, clean the flux off of it, and then let's just take a look and make sure it is the whole way welded around, and we'll take it from there, and I think it's time to go up under the car. And on this, I don't see no need on it on this. If you didn't like the look of the weld, you could take and grind it, make it nice and smooth. But again, it's under the car eventually, and probably another 10 years it'll rust up. I don't think in another 10 years I will own the car anymore. That's sort of amazed I had it long enough to have to replace it this go around on it. And you can see we're round. Sorry about the focus there for a little bit. I thought I had the camera focused better, but I was holding the muffler and the camera I took off the tripod at the same time. Well, I say it's time to get back here and take this underneath the car, and it's time for installation. About done with this whole deal. One more thing before putting it on, we have to clean the old gasket material off the tailpipe. I'm going to start. This looks like it should come off pretty easy. They're usually rustier and the flange and that. The gasket was good yet. You can see that it was not leaking. And I'm just going to take a razor and get the rough off of it. You can see it's just coming off easy as can be. Still nice and silvery and shiny like when I put it on a long time ago. And we'll do this a little bit more, and then we're just going to take here and we're going to sand some on it after I'm done with the razor. Yeah, I tried, if I feel it's something that interests people when I do my own work on my cars, to make a video. And it does seem to be videos I posted. People do have similar troubles and similar vehicles. Now you can see, not to change subject, we're sanding it now with a piece of sandpaper. And it is about ready here to go on this side. Yeah, you want to get the gasket material cleaned off good, but it isn't as technical as something to say to have antifreeze or something at it, but still try to get it good and make sure all the old gasket material is removed so you don't have an exhaust leak when it's all done. And this, I am going to say, it looks good. And just a little bit more here once, but yeah, that like rust at the top, that's pitted in, it's not coming out, but I'm going to try to get a little closer. Now we're going to slide the muffler back up on the exhaust pipe. With one exception, I want to get it back in these hangers there. I'm doing the one on the left side of the car, working it in. Like I say, sometimes those are no problem, and sometimes they'll fight you. Now we're going to get the one on the right side of the car. Little different angle there, and just put that one up in, and once they're in place, we can now slide it up on the muffler. It's not going to fall on the floor now, and just pull it back a little bit with those hangers, and I'm going to slide it on, of course, right over the pipe at the end. Okay, there it started on. Now get it on farther than what it is right now. But of course it's going to be stubborn, so let's see if we can encourage a little bit. And pull it up and down on the exhaust pipe. And we're going to take the rubber mallet and tap on it some and see if we can bring it in closer to where it's at. It is moving in some. not by leaps and bounds, but am starting to make some headway. Okay, take a couple more taps with it here, and we're gonna. It don't have to be again exactly where it was sitting before. And again, I had mentioned this earlier. Could be just a difference on the length of the inlet on the muffler. And I'm going to say that's close enough. It'll clamp on, and there's plenty of there for it to bite too. Okay, here we're going to go take and get the gasket out. Walker part number 31336. And we'll open this up, and we're going to take and get it ready to install. Yeah, the gasket, it's only a couple dollars extra along with the muffler. Yeah, it's just as simple, well, as you see, flat gasket, oval shape, 2 holes, pretty common gasket. There I sprayed it with some of the copper sealant stuff. Yeah, I recommend it, but if you don't want to, it probably would seal without it. And then I'm just going to take and hold it up, the tailpipe up against the muffler until we get a bolt and a nut here. I got the bolt. I'm going to push that in through. Again, I got lucky. I'm reusing the bolts. They weren't bad at all. And I always use grade 8 bolts there, so they're good hardened bolt I used the first time around. I don't even mess with the other bolts with automotive work there. Don't even buy them to keep on hand. Okay, turn the nut on. Oh, and if you notice, I'm using a flat washer under the bolt head and then putting the lock washer on before the nut on the other one. That's sort of, and the bolts are 1.5 inches length. In there again, 3/8 coarse thread. And I got to take and line this one up, being a little bit stubborn, but in it goes. And on this, I don't think matter. I think I had it the other way when I took it apart. I'm sure, go back and look at the beginning of the video, but whether the nut faces towards the front of the car or the back, I don't see much difference in it. And soon here, we'll just tighten these up. Before final tightening, now we're going to have to just adjust it here a little bit. It's not quite where I want it to sit here, just a little twist towards the right side of the car in my case, and tighten the nut up, and it'll soon be happy there. I'll like where it's sitting there. I was looking back and it was hitting the axle on the car, and now I'll just get our ratchets and the wrench and tighten the bolts up and the nuts and the bolts. And you're always better off to tighten on the nut instead of the bolt head. Gives you a lot better torque and more of a feel of the job. I say they need to not be terribly tight, just probably around 40 foot-pounds is technically what it calls for. I mean, I'm not going to go check on this exhaust there, but just tighten them up and make sure the lock washer flattens out when it's tightened, and they'll hold in place just fine. And then I'm just doing a little bit more adjusting there, and looks like it's not hitting anything. Yeah, right now I'm completely happy where it's set. Now I'm just going to tighten the nuts a little bit more on it. Just like I say, make sure they won't vibrate loose. But the lock washer is not real likely. I don't think I've ever had on a car exhaust bolts vibrate loose. Motorcycle working on exhaust nets, yeah, I've had it happen, but that's not as smooth as an 8-cylinder car. And just give this one another turn or so. And you can look at your gasket. Yeah, I can say also if you over tighten, you could crack the gasket. Don't want to do that. And just a little bit more on this one. Just again tighten the meats a little bit at a time instead of putting all your efforts. And you can see it's going out the back of the car where it should. It's not hitting the bumper. Although I still want to get a little farther away. So now we can do the final adjustment where the muffler slides on the pipe. Okay, a little bit more wiggling and jiggling here on this. I'm still not happy with it. There's not a whole lot of room up around the axle on these rear-wheel drive cars. And like I said, I want to make sure it comes out the back of the bumper where the U-shape's molded in it. Finally, there we go. We're going to get the clamp on it and get this all finished up and soon go call it a day on this. And I always on the clamps get the heavy duty clamps, not the other ones. If you have the heavy duty clamps, they're always take a 9/16 socket to tighten them up, and they're again 3/8 inch size. The light duty ones, they're I think only 1/4 or 5/16. There, drop the nuts. See how coordinated. There we go. Got that spun on. And as before, this try to tighten them evenly here with finger tight first, and then we're going to go get the wrench on it here, and we're going to snug them up fairly snug. Again, work a little bit at a time, back and forth. And one other thing to keep in mind at this point, you want to be sure the muffler is in place where you want it, because once you tighten it in and the metal crimps in on the muffler against the exhaust pipe, it's not real easy to slide back and forth anymore, not next to impossible. The only thing you maybe can get a little bit of action like earlier, just for the clearance on the axle, by pulling up and down on the muffler, you might get a little bit of up and down movement, but no forward or backward. And there it is, right out the center of the bumper.